Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Fandoms Assemble, where we're breaking down content from all your favorite fandoms, from the Marvel Universe to Harry Potter and the wider Wizarding World, Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and really whatever else this golden age of IP decides to throw at us next. My name's Steve Oborn Jr. and I'll be your host as we embark on this journey through the magic of modern day media. I'd like to take a moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a portion of your day with me, and I hope you find this pod to be both entertaining and informative, but most importantly, a satisfying resource for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. If you're like me, you run to the Reddit boards and Twitter feeds after that latest episode drops, and you're already Googling Easter eggs on the ride home from the movie theater. I'm here to tell you that that's okay. There are others of us out there, and I hope that Fandoms Assemble can be the arena where all that beautiful obsession can live and grow. Let's get to it. This episode of Fandoms Assemble will be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Episode 5. But before we get to the details of the episode, a quick recap on what happened in Episode 4. We had Ayo of the Dora Milaje from Wakanda coming to pick up Zemo, while Carly and her fellow unlucky Flag Smasher are discussing the Captain America shield while picking up the stolen Super Soldier serum. Then Sam and Carly have a heart-to-heart before John Walker busts in and chases her off, only to meet up later post John Walker taking the Super Soldier serum and Lamar Hoskins gets killed. Episode 4 then ends with John Walker brutally murdering one of the Flag Smashers in cold blood while the world is watching and recording on their cell phones. Which is where we pick up in Episode 5 with John Walker running from the scene of the murder, having a psychotic episode flashing back through his history and through the events of the murder that just happened a few minutes ago. He runs into an abandoned warehouse where he jumps to a knee, blood still on the shield, as Sam and Bucky Barnes enter. And John Walker tries to explain, they killed Lamar, they made me do it, yeah. And Sam and Bucky are trying to talk him down. Sam says, listen man, you gotta give me the shield. And as he says that, we see John Walker's eyes turn up in a deranged fashion and say, oh, I see what this is. You're trying to trick me. You're trying to steal the shield from me because you want to be Captain America. John Walker then says, you don't want to do this, to which we get the best line so far from the show. Bucky, staring at the shield, turns his eyes to John Walker and says, hell yeah, we do. But as they start fighting, we see as a comic book reference to the strength of John Walker. It was mentioned that this new Super Soldier serum that he took had him 50 times stronger than Cap, and he's really given Sam and Bucky a run for his money. Now, history in the MCU shows that Bucky gets beat up by any other super soldier, but this is next level, and John Walker is out to kill. Sam and Bucky are holding their own, and we get a cool scene where Bucky straight punches through a girder with his bionic arm, as John Walker screams, why are you making me do this? And throughout this fight scene, Sam is channeling his inner Steve Rogers in his fight with Bucky back in Winter Soldier, and he says, listen, you gotta calm down. You don't have to do this. We could take you in peacefully. You can try and turn yourself into the military. Even in the midst of this guy trying to take his head off with the Captain America shield, Sam is still trying to do the right thing, which just furthers his case to be Captain America by the end of this show. Throughout the fight, we get multiple scrambles for the shield as it gets knocked out of John Walker's hands. We also get multiple times in this fight and throughout the episode where he continues to repeat, I am Captain America. Again, reference back to what I said in the last episode. Shout out to Tywin Lannister. If you need to say you're Captain America, you're not really Captain America. We then get the climax of this fight where Bucky and Sam both have an arm, and in Thanos fashion, they're able to rip the shield off of John's arm. Thank God Chris Pratt is not in this show, as Star-Lord most definitely would have screwed this up. If we ever get to an MCU rewatch, we'll get into the fact that I hate the Guardians, and the only reason why Thanos won is because Star-Lord couldn't keep his shit together for 5 minutes for them to get the gauntlet off of Thanos' hand. But anyway, once they get the shield off John Walker, Bucky goes to work. He's really putting the hurt on this guy, and then we get a awesome shot where Sam's flying towards Bucky with the shield, and Bucky takes John Walker and slams his head off it. Knocked out, the shield falls to the ground, which Bucky picks it up and drops it at Sam's feet. As Bucky leaves the abandoned warehouse, we then get a beautifully sad metaphor of Sam picking up the shield and trying to wipe the Flag Smasher's blood off it, much like we'll go into in his conversations with Isaiah Bradley later in this episode. Sam is everly conscious of the bloodshed that has resulted around the Captain America shield and what happens at any point when Steve Rogers isn't the one using it. So Sam sitting here on the ground trying to wipe the blood off is him trying to erase the decades of dark history that he sees around the shield before he's ready to pick up the mantle of Captain America. Flash over to the refugee camps where the GRC is arresting anyone that ever had ties to Karli Morgenthau. We then get a conversation between First Lieutenant Torres and Sam Wilson. But before they start speaking, Bucky runs off and he's saying that he's going to find Zemo. Torres then explains to Sam, listen, Captain America killing a foreign national in a foreign country is an international incident. This is not going to be okay, and the higher-ups are on high alert, and we're being sidelined as a result. As they're talking, Torres is fascinated with what happened to Sam's wings. They continue to talk about how Karli's underground and no one can find her, but how this is likely to have set her off. As they break to go their separate ways, Sam picks up the Captain America shield and he leaves his wings with Torres. Now, as we talked about in early episodes, First Lieutenant Torres will become the Falcon when Sam Wilson becomes Captain America. We then see the results of John Walker killing a foreign national in this next scene. John Walker pulls up in full dress uniform for his hearing, where I believe this is supposed to be the Council for Superhuman Affairs, is firing John Walker. Boom, bitch! The same government official that we've seen in all these different capacities representing the United States informs him that he'll be receiving a dishonorable discharge, he'll be stripped of his rank in retirement, and he will receive no benefits. As a result, John Walker freaks out about he is just exactly what they made him to be. They made him to be a killing machine, he followed orders, and now they're getting upset that he is following his training and actually killed somebody. Again, we get a repeat here of him saying, I am Captain America, to which the guy behind the desk says, not anymore, you're not. John Walker walks out and we see his wife sitting there in the audience crying. And then the government official, who I guess was a senator, says, hey, and we want the shield back. Whoa, go fuck yourself, buddy. The shield was never the U.S. government's. The shield was just used by someone who at one point, very early in his military career, before he even went into the ice, used that shield 80 years ago. That does not make it your property. Sam Wilson donated it to the Smithsonian, yes, but there is no shot if now that Sam Wilson, by the end of this episode, is wielding the shield, that he's going to give it back to the U.S. government. Just so what? You could screw this decision up again? Or are you actually going to honor Sam's wishes and put the shield into retirement behind glass? Not going to happen. Outside the courtroom, John Walker is then sitting there talking with his wife about they have no idea what it takes to be Captain America, to which she says, listen, take one thing at a time. First, you have to go see Lamar Hoskins' parents. Now, as they're talking, enter Elaine Bennis, otherwise known as Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. Now, this is a character from the comic books known as Madam Hydra, and we'll get more into that in this episode's Fandom Academy. Now, we don't really know much about her because Val was supposed to appear in Black Widow, which was supposed to start Phase 4 before we had the pandemic and all the shutdowns as a result. And as they talk, Val is sympathizing with John Walker, saying she understands why he did what he did. She knows everything about the serum. She knows that the shield is missing, etc., etc. And she says, hey, there's some people who would be very interested in you now that you have the serum, so pick up the phone when I call. She then hands John's wife a blank black and white business card, and that's the last we see of her, with John Walker pondering what she could possibly want and leaving us to ponder what John Walker's future is going to be, working with Madam Hydra. Now, before we get to Bucky and Zemo at the Sokovia Memorial, a quick stop at the refugee camp where Karli and her Flag Smashers have returned to see it emptied out and everyone arrested. Karli then makes a plan with her Flag Smashers that they've gone too far now, that the GRC needs to be corrected, and Karli is out for blood. Over to Sokovia, we see Zemo standing outside the post-Age of Ultron memorial, and we see Sokovia flash across the screen. Now, I thought Zemo had said this wasn't Sokovia anymore. I would have liked to see them take the opportunity here to give us what the name of the area is now and say maybe former Sokovia, to give us some frame of reference on what's happening in this region and how that might tie into things like Dr. Doom creating Latveria out of this area or something like that. But nonetheless, this is really an opportunity to wrap up Zemo's story in this show and to prove to Zemo that Bucky is no longer the Winter Soldier. So while Zemo is standing out front of the memorial, Bucky shows up and he gives him one more pitch. Zemo gives Bucky one more pitch on why he should kill Carly Morgenthau. Bucky says, thanks, but I'm going to handle it in my own way. And he readies his pistol and points it at Zemo's face. And at first we see shock, but then we almost see relief. And this was a very touching moment for Zemo, who's standing at the footsteps of where his family was killed and he has a gun pointed at him. And you almost see relief. Like, finally, I'm going to be reunited with my family. Bucky pulls the trigger and he emptied the gun already. This was planned from the very beginning that Bucky was going to take this as an opportunity to prove to Zemo that you're wrong. As you're off to jail and I hope to never see you again, you were wrong. I am no longer the Winter Soldier. And he drops the bullets at his feet. When we pan up from the bullets, we see the doors behind him, arresting Zemo to bring him to the raft. Now, speculation has abound on the internet of what's going to happen with Zemo once he gets to the raft. We know that Thunderbolt Ross is the guy in charge of the raft, which is the prison out in the middle of the ocean that we saw in Civil War. And the prevailing thought in the clubhouse is that the Thunderbolts, which is the Marvel Universe's version of the Suicide Squad, are coming to the MCU to be led by Baron Zemo. And this makes a lot of sense to me. They put a lot of effort in Falcon and the Winter Soldier to reframe Zemo's image in our minds, and to make him the leader of a good bad guy squad would be a great chance to continue his storyline, a character who really caught fire here in Falcon and the Winter Soldier with the fans. Before they walk off, we get a conversation with Bucky and Ayo, where she says to make himself scarce until things calm down in Wakanda before he could safely return. She turns to leave and Bucky says, hey, I need one more favor. And we find out later in this episode, kind of, that it's going to be asking Shuri to make a Captain America suit for Sam Wilson. So after Sam left First Lieutenant Torres at the refugee building, he was apparently on his way to Baltimore, where we pick up Sam at Isaiah Bradley's house. Yes, this is exactly what I wanted. This is the opportunity for Sam to realize that there can be a black Captain America, and then it all goes off the rails. As Sam approaches the house, we get a reminder that, hey, Eli, Isaiah Bradley's grandson, is still present in this series, where he's playing basketball in the street, and Sam tells him, hey, I'm going to see your grandfather. As Sam enters the backyard, Isaiah is gardening, and Sam has the shield in a bag. He goes to undo that shield, and Isaiah says, is that what I think it is? Because if it is, keep it away. That thing has done nothing but hurt me. I don't want anything to do with it. I don't want to see the stars and stripes. Just please leave it alone. They then sit down, and Isaiah Bradley goes into exactly what we talked about in Fandom Academy Lesson 2 on Isaiah, and the backstory is almost word for word from Truth, Red, White, and Black. Isaiah speaks to the plight of a black man in the United States of America before getting into specifics of what happened to him. He tells him about the super soldier study. He tells him about how he was captured at some point. He tells him on how he was arrested for stealing Captain America's uniform after he got back and saved all of his friends. And we as the viewer know, obviously, that that is exactly what Steve Rogers did in Captain America and the First Avenger. And Tommy Lee Jones, I can't think of his name right now, Tommy Lee Jones had nothing to say. That, Steve was surrendering himself for disciplinary action after going against orders and nothing happened to him. But Isaiah, just for taking the uniform, is court-martialed and thrown in jail for 30 years, not to mention experimented on for that entire 30 years until Wilfred Nagel was able to recreate the super soldier serum from his blood. For more detail on what happened to Isaiah Bradley, if you haven't already, go back and listen to Fandom Academy Lesson 2 from Episode 2 of Fandoms Assemble. We then get a heartbreaking story of Isaiah Bradley and his wife, where apparently his wife had written him letters every day while he was in jail until they told her that he had died. It wasn't until he was freed from prison by escape, not to mention in the MCU, but freed from prison, that the nurse who helped him get out had given him the box of letters from his wife. In essence, the United States government erased Isaiah Bradley from history, which is why Sam Wilson never knew he existed. If it wasn't for Bucky Barnes, who was there in the 50s and fought against Isaiah Bradley and knew that there was a super soldier out there, we would never know that Isaiah Bradley even exists. He escaped from prison and he's been hiding in his house in Baltimore ever since. But upon hearing that story, Sam Wilson wants to right the wrong. Sam is always trying to do the right thing, as Steve Rogers always tries to do the right thing, even if the right thing is somewhat naive to think you could accomplish. Isaiah says, no, leave me dead. Everyone thinks I'm dead, leave me dead, because if they found out I was alive, in order to protect their deep, dark secrets, the U.S. government would have him killed within a day. Isaiah then continues to say they'll never let a black man to be Captain America, and even if they did, no self-respecting black man would ever want to be. Now, this is exactly the opposite of what I was hoping would be accomplished when Sam went to go visit Isaiah. I was hoping that it would be a glimmer of opportunity for Sam Wilson, that there was a black version of Steve Rogers out there at one point, and therefore he could do the same thing. And we see Isaiah's words hit Sam like a knife to the chest. He's strongly leaning towards picking up the shield and becoming Captain America. And now we have Isaiah Bradley sitting here essentially shaming him for wanting to do so. Thankfully for us as the viewers of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and a Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Sam takes this as a challenge as opposed to allowing Isaiah to convince him to turn the mantle down. Sam then leaves Isaiah's house and he gets on the phone and calls Sarah and says, I'm coming home. In New Orleans, we find Sam Wilson fixing a fishing net with his nephews and talking about his father, their grandfather, where the boys tell him that the boat is too broken to fix and therefore they can't sell it to the potential buyer they had lined up. Sam then confronts Sarah about it, saying, hey, why didn't you tell me this? Or she tells him that there's nothing that can be done. And Sam says, no, our parents meant a lot to this community. He's going to get the boat fixed. He's going to get on the phone and start calling in favors on his mom and dad's name. And it works. The next morning, everyone in the community is there to help them fix his boat, including a pair of gentlemen who brought a new engine for the boat. And when looking at it and saying, man, how the hell are we going to get this off the truck? Enter Bucky Barnes, who picks it up and throws it on his shoulder like it's a bag of flour, before telling Sam, listen, I'm just here to make a delivery. He's got the case with the new Captain America suit in it from Shuri. He says, take it and I'll make my leave. Open it, Sam. Open it. We want to see the suit. Open it. Of course, he's not going to open it now. He's not going to open it at all in this episode. We'll have to wait to the beginning of episode 6 in order to see the Captain America Falcon suit. But Bucky doesn't immediately run away. There springs a leak in the boat, and Bucky helps him fix it, and it becomes apparent to Sam that, listen, this guy knows what he's doing, and he could be some help here. Then, hey now, we get a great scene of Bucky and Sarah starting to flirt, and the look on Sam's face is just hilarious, and then, let's go! We're getting a good old-fashioned boat-fixing montage. Cue the music and 3 or 4 references to Bucky having a bionic arm and being able to fix things easily, before our boys sit down to discuss Carly Morgenthau, and Sam says that he has Torres keeping an eye on her. Bucky then claims that he's just going to go stay in a hotel, where Sam says, listen, man, you're in my city takes care of people, and we're not going to have anyone stay up in a hotel. You can stay at my place, but listen, stay away from my sister. Bucky then takes his leave to go get a good night's rest, and we're left with Sam looking at the box again. Just open the damn thing! Flash to John Walker meeting with Lamar Hoskins' parents, where he is straight lying to these people that the flag smasher he killed was the one that killed Lamar. Lamar's mom then starts to tell him about how honored he was to be partners with Captain America, to be friends with Captain America, how proud he was when John Walker was even just selected to be Captain America before he found out he'd be working with him. Now, in this scene, we have John, Lamar's parents, and then I don't know whether that's his wife or his sister, but throughout this scene, I couldn't help but look at her and think that she wasn't necessarily buying John Walker's story. She seemed very upset. When he leaves, she just goes to console Lamar's parents, but she's shooting John a look like, listen, man, I don't really think you're being truthful here. You're being really over the top with saying, yes, I would never allow the person who did that to Lamar to continue living. So I'm interested to see whether that crops back up at some point in this show or in future shows, if John Walker is going to be a part of some villain group under Madam Hydra. John then walks down the street and sees the Cap is back poster, and that sends him off on his way to what we get in the post-credit stinger, where he's making his own Captain America shield. This guy is way off the deep end, and he thinks that he is the one true Captain America, and if he can't be Captain America, no one can. Then a bizarre flash over to Sharon Carter, standing in her stolen art gallery, where she's having a conversation with Batroc the Leaper, where she's saying, listen, I'm the one that freed you from that Algerian prison, and now you owe me a favor. But what the hell is Sharon Carter doing, working with Batroc the Leaper, aiding the Flag Smashers, as we later find out, with weapons? And she says this is such a priority for her that she's going to pay the Leaper double. I don't know what's going on with Sharon. I originally thought she was working for S.H.I.E.L.D., but why would she be providing the Flag Smashers with weapons? Is S.H.I.E.L.D. trying to take down the GRC? God, this is just so confusing, and I really hope that Sharon's actions don't lead to the death or injury of Bucky or Sam or Carly. Back to the Wilson family home, where Bucky is waking up from his first good night's sleep in 106 years, where he sees Sam's nephews playing with the S.H.I.E.L.D. As they run away, when they find out that Bucky is watching them, the S.H.I.E.L.D. falls to the ground, and you can just tell that Bucky is looking at it longingly, trying to think back to the memories he had with Steve, etc., before he leaves to go to the boat. It's early in the morning, and Bucky finds Sam already there, hard at work. They then have another scene where Sam kind of looks at him and acknowledges that, yeah, okay, you're here to help. We're in this together. Let's get this done. He gives Bucky a task to do. And then we flash to later in the morning with Sarah and the rest of the town showing up, where she's yelling at them for fixing a water pump that she swears they shouldn't be touching. And she says, basically, stay in your lane, bro. I don't come up to the sky and teach you how to fight against supervillains. You don't come down here and tell me how to fix my boat and start touching things that don't need to be touched. So then we find the boys out on the front lawn having a workout with the S.H.I.E.L.D. with some targets that they set up on some trees. And in the most mind-blowing part of this episode, Bucky explains to Sam that he knew in advance that Steve was going back and staying with Peggy, and that they never thought, him and Steve never thought about what it would mean to hand a black man the shield. That they never thought through of all the ramifications of a black man taking up the mantle of Captain America. But this means that Steve and Bucky discussed in advance that while he was returning the time stones, he was never coming back. Which, when you look back at Endgame, where Bucky says, hey, I'm gonna miss you, man, it's just ever more heartbreaking to know that Bucky knew he was never going to see his friend again. That his friend was going to go back and live the life that he wishes he could have lived in the 40s, and that they were never going to see each other. That Bucky was going to lose the only family he had left. To further that point, Bucky then tells Sam that the shield is the closest thing to him, which is why he was so upset when he turned it over to the Smithsonian, because it's like the only part of his family he has left, and he had nothing left once Sam gave it away. You know, also trying to hold on to anything that ties into Steve. He uses his notebook, for example, for his amends list because he's got no one else. But then Sam puts on his trauma therapy cap and starts to tell Bucky, listen, man, you can't keep looking to other people to tell you who you are. And more to that, if you truly want to make amends, if you want to stop the nightmares, you have to really put in the work to get yourself out of this hell in here. He then sends him to truly make amends with someone on his list. Be of service to someone on your list, he says. Which obviously is going to lead to Bucky ending up in episode 6, going back to Yori Nakajima, and us getting a heartbreaking scene of Bucky telling Yori that he killed his son as the Winter Soldier. By providing Yuri that closure, he will truly be of service to him and some of the heartbreak that sits on his mind as a result of that murder. Now, as I said in prior episodes, I never wanted Bucky to tell Yuri that he killed his son, but now that I think about it, I mean, Yuri hasn't been in the show. Bucky hasn't been in New York to spend time with Yuri at all. I really hope that Yuri is still alive. I saw something twisted on the internet where people were saying that Bucky never got to say sorry to Tony Stark, so that's a name that will always be on his list. So I really hope now that Yuri is alive and well in New York City, that Bucky's able to meet him at the bar, that they can go back and they can sit and have a nice conversation in Yuri's apartment and he could tell him exactly what happened, and we don't put any more on Bucky Barnes. The guy's been through enough. Our boys then break, and unless Bucky comes back for the fight in the final episode, which I'm not sure he will, this is the last time we're going to see Sam and Bucky together as the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm hoping for a Book of Boba Fett reference at the end of this show where it'll say Bucky and Sam will return in Captain America and the White Wolf. But until then, this very well might be the last time we see them in the same place. Once they leave each other, Sam then heads back to the dock to do the final touches on the boat before they could sell it. And that's obviously painting over the name of Sam and Sarah's parents on the boat. They're going to resell it. The next owner will have to christen it and give it a name. So they need to paint over Sam and Sarah's father and mother's name in order to be able to sell it. Once he whips out the paintbrush, Sarah says, no, we can't do this. And then they have a nice talk sitting there on the docks about how this is their history and that they have to preserve their history. Sam then talks about the past of how he aspirationally wanted to change the world and show everyone that a guy like Sam can rise out of his situation and truly make a difference in the world, but that he thought that Sarah always resented him for it, that she thought that he was always running away. We then get a touching moment between these two, which I hope is not a tender moment, but a touching moment between these two where Sarah says she always admired him. Don't let for 1 second think that I thought you were running away from everything. You have done an excellent job at saving the world and coming back here and saving your family from financial distress. And then she says, listen, are you really going to let a bitter old man like Isaiah Bradley, please, from me, Isaiah Bradley is more than in the right to be bitter about this whole thing. But are you going to let Isaiah Bradley change your mind about becoming Captain America? After all you've been through, are you going to let what happened to him affect you to the point where you're going to turn down the mantle? And Sam says, hell no. We've been through too much. I fought for too long. I'm going to be Captain America. And here we come with the Rocky-esque training montage. Sam is slinging this shield like he's been doing it his whole life. And an important note here to point out is when shows go and do fight choreography, like when they're throwing the shield. If you look at John Walker throughout this series, he throws the shield in a straight line. He goes and he hits his target and it comes right back to him. But Sam is training to throw the shield the way Steve threw the shield, where he's bouncing it off multiple targets before it comes back. He's doing acrobatics as he's throwing the shield. And at first, yeah, he does struggle. I said before that he was doing it like he's doing it his whole life, but he does drop the shield a lot in the beginning. And then we have some touching cut scenes where he's running. And every time you notice he's running, he's on the left side of your screen, which is if it was reversed and you were actually running on that path with Sam, he's running on the right side, leaving it open for someone to come by and say, on your left, and run by him. He's training with Steve every step of the way, from his cardio routine to his battle simulations training throwing the shield. We then see Sam at the end of his workout, standing with his nephews, and they're touching the shield, and we see the look on Sam's face that despite what Isaiah Bradley says, he's going to use the Captain America mantle to be a role model for his community. He is going to inspire young black boys like his nephews to be whatever they want to be in life. He's going to push against the systemic racism that has haunted that shield in Sam's eyes, and he's going to make a difference. Coming towards the end of the episode here, we then see Karli Morgenthau meeting up with Bartok the Leaper, where he has weapons, and all he wants in exchange for the weapons is the opportunity to kill the Falcon. What the hell is Sharon doing? Why did she throw Sam out there as bait? Sam and Sharon have not had a conversation where he's saying he wants to pull Karli out of hiding. So what is she doing sending the Leaper out after Sam Wilson? Karli then talks to Bartok and her fellow Flag Smasher and sends out the message to all the Flag Smashers, who apparently make up everyone that's in this park in New York City. She then helpfully gives us a little exposition on what their plans are going to be. Like I mentioned in the last episode, the Patch Act is a government action and will therefore need a hearing or some sort of signing. So the Flag Smashers are going to hit at the GRC building in New York City while the entire GRC is meeting to vote on the Patch Act. We then see Sam at home, and he's watching the news on the vote when Torres calls him to tell him about the Flag Smashers' activity. Anytime they've seen a Flag Smashers message go out, it's been across Eastern Europe, but he just saw a hit in New York, and it clicks for Sam. The Flag Smashers are going to the GRC to attack that vote. Then we flash to the GRC, where all the countries around the room are bickering about whether they're going to actually relocate the refugees and they're actually going to pass the Patch Act. Unfortunately for me, I don't see a guy who looks like Wolverine at the front of this room leading the GRC, nor do I see anyone of note there that could be the power broker, so maybe those theories are going to fall flat. But here we go again, with this same U.S. government official now representing the United States in the GRC, saying, listen, we already have forces in place to move these people out of their current homes and back to where they came from. Why are we even going through the formality of a vote here? We're already prepared to put the Patch Act into motion, so let's just get on with it. As he says that, we see Flag Smashers in the back of the room, in Hail Hydra fashion, passing a one world, one people between each other, when then shit starts to hit the fan. The lights go out, red lights come up, and there's some hacker-esque glitching to the computer screens in front of all the members of the GRC. We then cut back to Sam at his house where he's got the box in front of him, and he's ready to gear up to fly to New York to beat the Flag Smashers and to protect the vote. And he's finally gonna open the box. We're finally gonna get to see the Captain America suit and credits. Are you kidding me? We just wanted to see the suit. It's been everywhere, from toys to, I saw something where the Hallmark catalog had released a Falcon in the Captain America suit ornament for Christmas. And it's only April. Like, come on, we couldn't get a glimpse of the Captain America suit before it cut. That would have been way more impactful and it would have paid off for everyone, rather than frustrating us for the third time in this episode, not showing us what the suit looks like. But then lastly, post-credits, we get a sound of hammering a la Tony Stark. But this man could be further from Tony Stark. We see John Walker in his garage hammering out a makeshift shield. In horror movie, stalker, I don't know, strong weirdo vibes. He's cutting and grinding this thing out of scrap metal with handmade tools. He's spray painting it with shit from Home Depot, and he tack welds his Medal of Honor to the back of the shield. As we talked about in the last episode, John Walker earned that Medal of Honor by operating in the gray. He already admitted that to Lamar Hoskins. So the symbolism here, I believe, is that John Walker is prepared to go full psycho with his little rinky-dink homemade shield and his sparkling personality to go force himself as Captain America on the world. I'd be interested to see if in the next episode, Madame Hydra leaves a Dumbledorian package on the foot of John Walker's bed with a black U.S. agent suit and a note that says, "Use it well." But that'll do it for the episode recap of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5. And as you know, Fandoms Assemble strives to be the #1 resource on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. To honor that promise, we can't just give you the same old boring recap of the episode. We got to give you some things to think about. We got to give you some analysis. So here are the top 5 questions from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, episode 5. Number 1, what is Sharon doing calling Batroc and working with the Flag Smashers? This entire time, I was under the impression she was working for S.H.I.E.L.D. She helped Sam and Bucky in Madripoor, and now she's going out and arming Batroc and connecting him with Karli Morgenthau, and in exchange for helping her, his end of the deal is the ability to kill the Falcon. He's coming after Sam Wilson, and Sharon is serving him on a silver platter. By providing Karli weapons and the ability to go attack the GRC, she knows that Sam is going to respond. So she knows that by breaking Batroc out of prison, that she's putting a target on Sam's back. This one just really threw me for a loop. Unless she is the power broker and everyone on the internet is right, and she's using Batroc to create a big scene where she could draw Karli out of hiding, I don't see what Sharon's motivations could be here by working with these two. Question number 2, and I touched on this already in the episode recap, but did Bucky telling Sam that him and Steve didn't contemplate what giving Sam the shield would mean inherently mean that Steve had talked to Bucky about his plans to go back with Peggy? And I guess my replacement question to that would be, why didn't Bucky volunteer to go back with Steve? I know that Bucky has lived all 106 years of life while Steve was in the ice for 70 of them. But until Bucky has that heart-to-heart with Sam immediately following that statement, Bucky would be 100% the person to run away from his problems and head back to the 40s with Steve. Now, maybe there were some logistical issues there. Bucky's got a bionic arm, a technology that was never seen in the 40s. But this thought just completely changes the end of Avengers Endgame for me, and the interaction that Steve and Bucky had with, oh, don't do anything stupid, you're bringing all the stupid with you, because Steve says, don't do anything stupid until I get back. So yeah, he knew he was going to come back as like a 90-year-old man, but he then also knew that Bucky wasn't going to do anything stupid because he was going to be sitting there lakeside with him when he returned to bring the shield back to Sam. Question number 3, Bucky stays around, so how is that interaction, how will that making of amends go with Yori Nakajima? As I said, I really hope that Yori is still alive, and they're not going to just kick Bucky's character again by killing him off before Bucky could talk to him. But then what is Yori's reaction going to be? Is it going to be a tearjerker moment where Yori breaks down and thanks Bucky for telling him what happened to his son, just providing closure, and then, let's move on from Yori's storyline? There's a lot to unpack there. First off, apparently Yori didn't know that Bucky was an Avenger. If he knew he was an Avenger, then he knew he was the Winter Soldier. So Bucky's going to have to get into all of that. And then again, are they going to knock Bucky that way by having Yori afraid of him or trying to attack him or reacting in some understandable but malicious fashion towards Bucky? They had to bring the show around to answer this question after setting Yori up in the first couple episodes. But when you have so much to tie up, I wonder how much detail they're going to provide in this meeting. It also raises the question of how quickly this meeting is going to get wrapped up so that Bucky can run down the street to help Sam fight the Flag Smashers. And John Walker, I guess, if he shows up. Question number 4, are there unreleased Captain America movies in the works that will be tackling issues of race even further and the pushback that Sam receives as a result of donning the Captain America mantle? Isaiah Bradley's comments seem to bring this to the forefront the most, where he says that they'll never let a black man be Captain America. Now, are they going to show that to us in the MCU, or are they going to leave it to the real world, as unfortunate and disappointing in the human race as that is, to all the bigots that are going to come out of the woodwork and attacking Falcon and the Winter Soldier online for putting the Captain America shield on a black man? We saw this come to life already with Disney's Star Wars trilogy, where every crazy racist in the world challenged Star Wars and called Disney snowflakes for making Finn a stormtrooper when the stormtroopers have never taken off their helmets before, ever. For all we know, they could all be black. But still, the trolls on the internet and the most intellectually deficient among us flock to the message boards to criticize Star Wars for making a stormtrooper black. I'm sure that will most certainly happen the first time we see Sam put on this suit, and Marvel has been preparing us for this entire show, but I wonder if they're going to bring that sad reality to a Captain America movie, or perhaps Falcon and the Winter Soldier Season 2, and make that another front that Sam has to fight outside of financial troubles and systemic racism and small business lending, in addition to, of course, the big three: aliens, androids, and wizards. And last but not least, question number 5, who is Contessa Valentina Allegra de Fontaine, i.e. Val? Now, as we've said time and time and again, folks, Fandoms Assemble strives to be the #1 resource on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. To live up to that promise, we can't just ask life's great questions, we got to answer a few of them ourselves. So sharpen your pencils, crack open those textbooks. Man, you better stop talking to my sister and join us for this week's Fandom Academy Lesson 5, Madam Hydra. So we already mentioned in the episode recap that Contessa Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine is a new character to the Marvel Cinematic Universe that was originally supposed to be introduced in Marvel's Black Widow. Now, in that movie, we would presumably be getting a little more of Val's backstory, which would have made her an even larger cameo in this episode. According to Marvel.com, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is a triple agent, secretly working for the terrorist organization the Leviathan, while successfully infiltrating both S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra. Now, I referred to this Fandom Academy lesson as being on Madam Hydra, and that is because Valentina Allegra de Fontaine was the second iteration of Madam Hydra after the Viper. Madam Hydra being a title bequeathed to Hydra's #1 female operative. Her backstory includes being a child in Russia whose parents served for the Leviathan, a secret terrorist network headquartered in Russia. During the Cold War, the Leviathan gives her family the De Fontaine identities and they relocate to Italy, posing as members in a local resistance effort against the communist USSR. Valentina's parents are later killed and Leviathan offers her a job in their organization. During her career as a spy in Leviathan, she infiltrates S.H.I.E.L.D. and becomes close with Nick Fury, and joins the Femme Force, an elite group of female S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, and reports to the team's leader, Sharon Carter, as her second in command. Now, I say she was close with Nick Fury, but she was actually in love with Nick Fury. They lived together, and most of her story involves some combination of Nick Fury, Sharon Carter, and Captain America. There's a part in the comics where Nick Fury can't trust anyone, and he winds up taking out all of his human S.H.I.E.L.D. agents and replacing them with robots. Val is one of the only people to survive that clearing of the guard, and for most of her comics run, you wouldn't be able to tell that she was a secret Russian spy. As I said, she had a lot of missions with Captain America and S.H.I.E.L.D. both in the United States and in the UK, and it wasn't for some time that S.H.I.E.L.D. realized that she had been a secret Russian sleeper all along. In another storyline, Val secretly joins Hydra, taking the identity of Madam Hydra, hence the title of this episode, where she manipulates Hydra into stealing a powerful artifact from the Silver Samurai, a mutant and a villain in the Marvel comic books universe who has many battles with Spider-Man, Black Widow, and Shang-Chi, all who have movies coming out by the end of 2021. It was in this capacity as Madam Hydra that her secret Leviathan identity was then revealed after starting a war between Leviathan and Hydra. By the end of this story arc, again, she's identified as a Russian sleeper during her career at S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. She surrenders herself to Interpol, last to be seen in a prison cell in the comics. So how does this all tie into the MCU and her role in trying to recruit John Walker in Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Obviously not seeing Black Widow yet, I would say one of the primary roles for Val's entrance into the MCU as a replacement to Hydra. We have S.H.I.E.L.D., we have the Avengers, but what we don't have is an organizing force behind the villains in the MCU. To that, I'd say Leviathan provides the perfect evil organization for Phase 4 of the MCU, particularly as two of their primary goals were to turn people into super soldiers using alien technology and to brainwash people into being assassins via the Red Room, which is where Natasha Romanoff learned her skills to become the Black Widow. Given that John Walker already has the super soldier serum in his blood, he would be a very attractive target to recruit for Leviathan in their efforts to recruit a team of super soldiers themselves. Another popular theory rolling around the internet, as I mentioned earlier, was that Zemo was going to take center stage in the creation of the Thunderbolts. The Thunderbolts again being Marvel's take on the Suicide Squad, who played a major role in the Secret Invasion run. The Thunderbolts were later recast as the Dark Avengers, who, if coming to the MCU, will need a Dark Captain America. What better way to continue John Walker's delusions of being Captain America than letting him take his garage-made shield and leading a team of supervillains assembled by the evil version of Nick Fury, Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. This is all speculation, of course, on my part. However, since the 1960s, Valentina's story arc has had a lot of twists and turns, and I could see it making perfect sense to allow her to use the knowledge and the capabilities that she learned from Nick Fury in order to provide a future foil for the Avengers. But I will leave it at that. This has been Fandom Academy Lesson 5 on Madam Hydra. I hope you found that segment to be both informational and entertaining. But now, here are some rapid-fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. Number 1, as I mentioned in the episode breakdown, Joaquin Torres eventually becomes the Falcon in the Marvel comic books canon. I love to see him receive his wings here, literally and figuratively, as Sam Wilson turns over the mantle of the Falcon more or less by picking up the shield of Captain America and leaving the broken Stark Tech Falcon wings to Torres at Mamadonia's refugee camp. Number 2, when Sam Wilson is visiting Isaiah Bradley, he mentions the Red Tails, the famous 332, which is a callback to something I mentioned in Isaiah Bradley's Fandom Academy lesson, in which his storyline is a near mirror of the real Tuskegee study that the US government conducted. The correlation here is that the Red Tails refer to the Tuskegee Airmen, a group of black military pilots who fought in World War II. Staying on the Isaiah Bradley train, Easter egg number 3, this episode is called Truth, which you'll remember again from the Isaiah Bradley Fandom Academy lesson, refers to 2003's Truth, Red, White, and Black, where we were introduced to the Isaiah Bradley character. And number 4, a running revelation in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is that they do not allow villains to talk on iPhones on screen. If you see someone talking on an iPhone, they're a good guy. If you see them talking on an Android, they're bad. Take note, kids. This is true in real life as well. Don't talk to the mean people with the green bubbles. That being said, the hurtful part of this Easter egg revelation is that when Sharon Carter calls Bartrock the Leaper, there is no Apple product to be found in sight. I'm not saying this is a definite, but it does not spell well for Sharon Carter in episode 6, particularly after she's working with the Flag Smashers in the first place, to see her with an Android product in her hands. And that'll do it for this episode's Rapid Fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. That's right, folks. It is tinfoil hat time. So if you've been listening to the last several episodes, you know that this is the opportunity for me to get into how I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to wrap up next episode and how that will lead into the larger MCU. This is where we'll talk about theories. This is where we'll talk about completed character arcs. But most importantly, this is where we create that social media content. So please indulge me for the next few minutes as I dive into how I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier is going to wrap up in episode 6. If you recall, in past tinfoil hat times, I have really been hammering Wolverine as the power broker, Sharon being a part of S.H.I.E.L.D., and just overall the X-Men returning to the MCU in this series, with Sam somehow reforming Carly and her becoming a hero once the power broker is revealed to be pulling the strings at the GRC. But this episode, man, this really torched a lot of those theories for me, particularly at the end. For some reason, we keep seeing this same guy representing the United States, and he's more or less leading the GRC, almost like there's some kind of UN body. And clearly the Wolverine's nowhere to be found in that room. I don't know why they called it the Patch Act. I don't know why there's been so many references to Wolverine and Madripoor. And I gotta tell you, I'm a little disappointed here. That being said, the crazy theories don't stop at Wolverine. So we'll start at what happens in the immediate beginning of the next episode. The GRC's getting attacked. Sam's on his way to New York. Bucky's on his way to New York to meet Yori. And Sharon is sending Batroc the Leaper and the Flag Smashers to go kill Sam. We also have John Walker floating out there, but I don't even know if he reports to the GRC and responds to the Flag Smashers. I mean, he had the conversation with Hoskins' family where he said he would never let the person who killed Lamar get away with it, which means he would need to be going after Carly. But is him lying to Hoskins' family and him placing the murder of Hoskins on that Flag Smasher that he killed with the shield enough to soothe the hurts given to him by the Flag Smashers and have him completely focused on whatever Val is going to bring into his life in future series? I do think we get a Power Broker reveal in the next episode, and I think I was right in that the Power Broker is using the Patch Act to draw Carly out of hiding. Now, her actions in the last episode may indicate that it's Sharon Carter, but given the fact that she knew where Carly was going to be and she didn't act, but she sent the Leaper to help her, to me proves that it's not Sharon. In fact, my theory for Sharon is that she's a Skrull. This really isn't Sharon Carter, and it hasn't been Sharon Carter the entire time. We saw in Spider-Man Far From Home that Nick Fury has the Skrulls running S.H.I.E.L.D. operations in the United States and abroad. And we also know from the end of WandaVision that the Skrulls are hidden everywhere. We also know that the MCU is leading up to a secret invasion show, which in the comics was almost a Twilight Zone body snatchers. The Skrulls have come to Earth and they're invading in a quote-unquote secret war. But we're cool with the Skrulls now. We saved them from the Kree. We've given them a home. Nick Fury's currently in space with them, trying to find them a new planet. So I don't think they're turning the Skrulls bad. But Sharon being a Skrull to me is the only way it makes sense that she would send someone to kill Sam. Even if she truly is the Power Broker, she's a king of the underworld, I don't think she would have it in her to take out her old friend. I do think, however, that a Skrull with no attachment to Sam would have no problem putting his life in danger in order to move the chess pieces to where they need to be. As of this minute, I am now predicting that Sam and Bucky report to the GRC together, and that they are initially fighting Carly and the Flag Smashers until either John Walker or the Power Broker shows up and tries to kill Carly. At which point Sam will intervene, which I then think leads to Carly killing Batroc the Leaper at some point as he attempts to kill Sam. Yeah, I like that. And then I'm going to go back to John Walker not being there at all, and I'm going to explain why right now. I think after he's done making the shield, John's going to get that call from Val. And there's also going to be a package that arrives to his house with the costume of the U.S. agent. It's similar to the Captain America costume, but it's black instead of blue. Then I think what happens with John Walker moving forward is that he indeed does become the head of the Dark Avengers. I'm going to take that one step further. I'm going to tie in Darren Cross, who I originally said is a potential to be the Power Broker. Darren Cross is also going to join the Dark Avengers as the anti-Ant-Man. We're then going to see Justin Hammer, another internet favorite for the Power Broker, to be the anti-Iron Man in the Dark Avengers. Now, when do we actually get someone with superpowers in here? I'm not sure. But I think the Cross and Hammer addition to John Walker's team leads nicely into the Armor Wars series that we're supposed to see at some point next year. So for that reason, I think John Walker's out of this show. Or at least that he has his own storyline going on, propelling him forward to another series, to another movie. That leaves us with Sam, Bucky, Carly, and Sharon at the GRC, and those storylines are going to get settled there. We're going to get a big fight, and by the end of it, Sam, Bucky, and Carly are going to be standing, and we're going to have an idea of what the hell Sharon Carter's deal has been in this show. And then I think it ends. We have Sam with the cap suit on. We have Bucky being able to go back to Wakanda and live a peaceful life now that he's made amends, or he's just going to continue to keep going down the list and serving the people who he's wronged. And then, hey, maybe Skrull Sharon takes Carly Morgenthau to space to team up with Monica Rambeau and do whatever Nick Fury needs them to do up there. And I'll end it there. That's the end of the segment. Tinfoil hat time. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did, and you have enjoyed the Fandoms Assemble podcast so far through the first 5 episodes, please subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your preferred podcast channel is. Fandoms Assemble is now listed on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Amazon Music, and really anywhere else you'd go to listen to a podcast. The first 5 episodes of Fandoms Assemble are also up on YouTube. So if you have anyone who doesn't have a podcast app downloaded, shoot them the YouTube link. Give me some views. And why are you going to do that? Because if you have family, a friend, a neighbor, a dog, a teacher, a coworker who enjoys the MCU, has loved Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and wants to learn more, particularly in the areas of fan theories and education that I provided in this podcast, it is your obligation to share the Fandoms Assemble podcast with them. And last but not least, for more Fandoms Assemble content, for clips from this episode, news and notes coming from me, follow at FandomsPod, FandomsPod, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. And most importantly, please join us next time on Fandoms Assemble, where we're going to be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 6, the season finale. This is bound to be a good one, and I can't wait to share it with my loving Fandoms Assemble audience. Until next time.